broadcasting from the campus of Lynn Benton Community College. We are the Mid-Valley STEM-CTE Hub. I'm your host, Casey, and this is Closing the Gap. Hey listeners, welcome back. As you may or may not know, the Willamette Valley is home to dozens of small organic farms. These farms feed local communities by selling their beautiful produce to beloved co-ops and farmers markets and restaurants in their areas. Today we're chatting with Eden Olsen. She's a farmer and the owner of Lucky Crow Farm in Monmouth, Oregon. Eden is going to tell us exactly why it's important to support local organic farmers. And it's not just about economic stimulation. So I would love to hear about how you got into farming and also how you now own a vegetable farm. Can you kind of take us on that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad grew up on a grass seed farm here in town, and my mom grew up on a homestead in town as well. And so I kind of found, recognizing later that my career has sort of become a middle ground between the two of them, where I'm growing on a much smaller scale than what my dad was doing as a kid, but I'm doing vegetable production, trying to feed people healthy food like my mom has always done for us growing up. So, but I went to school in Southern California, originally not having any intention of being a farmer, but I fell in love with my courses on food production, food equity, and climate, change and how that's affecting agriculture and water and, us as eaters. And so I ended up majoring in sustainable agriculture and food policy, intending to go into the food system somewhere. And so then I left the school and went to the Bay Area, and I managed farmers markets for a while. And I realized I was super jealous of the farmers at the market. And so I had some homies there that hired me on as a ranch hand up in Sacramento. And they, so I worked there for them for a season. We had cattle and sheep and olive oil production. And that's when I decided, okay, I want to grow vegetables. That's my passion. So I decided to move to Washington, where I began working on an organic vegetable and livestock farm. So we did salad mixes and specialty heirloom tomatoes. And at that point, I, after that season, received an opportunity to come back home and sort of start up farming on some family land and an urban farm, which we'll get into later. And so I ended up just starting my own thing, having learned quite a bit from farmers that I'd worked for, but also literally having no idea what the heck I was doing. So that was 6 years ago. And that's why I am here, and so happy that I followed that path.
So I think you mentioned that you had studied food policy. Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Can you kind of tell me a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, I mean, I made my own major up. So I went to a school where you could kind of do that. It was under the umbrella of environmental analysis, environmental science, but I ended up taking courses sort of about, not only the issues with food access in our society, but also, what we are doing to the climate in order to create a whole bunch of food that will eventually and inevitably create a loss of food. But it was a lot of interesting theoretical stuff. And I think that's something to touch on, because school to me was very much a place where I learned to be a critical thinker, where I became a good writer, where I learned a lot about the issues associated with our food system and the inequalities associated with that. But I never was in a position in school to learn how to farm. I don't think that's something that you can be taught in a classroom. And so I consider my, foray out into the farms after that, like an extension, like graduate school, if you will, because to become a farmer, at least for me, you have to learn from experienced people, or just try and fail a whole bunch. So, yeah, it was a wonderful experience and definitely gave me a taste of the kinds of concepts I wanted to work within.
So speaking of concepts, like what is the goal of Lucky Crow Farm? Like what's the big picture?
Whoa, yeah. So I kind of operate the farm under the hoping to operate a sustainable venture. And for me, sustainability is more than just what we kind of associate with, the environmental or ecological impacts. So that's really important for me, obviously. And our riparian zones and our habitats and our soil inputs, and our carbon footprint, it's all really important on the farm. But there's also an aspect for me that is the economic sustainability. So I think equally as important as environmental is the fact that I can come back next season, that I can, maintain a healthy livelihood based off of what I'm growing and producing. And so in our culture, unfortunately or fortunately or whatever, you have to make money. And so the farm cannot continue without profitability. So we really strive to make that a keystone for the farm. And then lastly, a pillar of our mission is social sustainability. So essentially, are we wearing out our bodies so we, can't farm in the future? Am I paying fair wages to my employees so that they can live a sustainable lifestyle at home? Are we taking the time and energy and money that we have to spare and pouring it into our local community? And so that's also really important. And I think as a business grows, that social impact can become bigger and bigger. And so that's, I guess Lucky Crow trying to be sustainable. And that's just such a crazy thing to unpack.
Totally. I think it's very interesting you're talking about the social impact of farming, because I guess I don't really, and you also touched on it, where you don't think of having a job or a career as being like socially sustainable all the time. I feel like, it's something that seems to come first and maybe kind of tends to take over. What are some, I don't know, methods that you use to kind of ensure that, you have that quality of life outside of work?
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. I think that's less so in the summer for sure. We are like our hobbies happen in the winter time. But I think more and more I've recognized that I can't keep farming if it's just, all or nothing. I can't have a family. Like my partner would be she wouldn't be with me if I didn't make time for us. There are just so many parts of life that are encompassed in a farmer's life too. And so my first 2 years of farming, 2 or 3, I would say, I didn't value that, and I was worn down and I was burnt out, and I didn't necessarily love what I did because of that. So it's really intentional, and I'm an all or nothing person, but it's I have to take a break. There are times, it's this is a sacred Sunday that we have put in the books, and we're not going to go to the farm. And it's hard, and it's, like I said, very intentional. But it's something that I really push my employees to do as well. They only work 8-hour days, and that's it, and that's weird for farms.
Totally. I'm kind of familiar with the idea of Oregon farmers. I don't know about anywhere else, but the lack of overtime pay, they could work 10 hours only, but only get paid their regular wage, which I think is interesting for sure.
Yes. To say the least. I think we're going to see that changing soon, though, from what I understand. So that would be good news in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. It sounds like it would make it more socially sustainable to kind of have practices move in that direction.
Exactly.
You were talking about something that I thought was really interesting when I was learning about your farm is that you're actually like an urban farm, not like a big, plot of land that people generally think of farming. Can you kind of talk about like how you work, well, like what your solution is to like making these different plots like cohesive and I don't know, just a well-oiled ship. I don't know, tongue-tied.
So I farm 3 plots currently, one of which is my family's farmland historically. So that's where like 6 generations of my family has farmed in the past. But and that's where we do like we wash and pack there. We have our greenhouses, but a good chunk of our production is on urban farms. And so we have one in Salem. It's kind of a smaller plot, and then our main one in Monmouth, which is 2 blocks away from the big farm is right on the urban growth boundary. So we are just right next door, but the urban farm is really an important part of Lucky Crow, I think, because it's a space where people can watch us growing. It's where people go to pick up their produce when they order it. And food production is not something that we are seeing on a day-to-day basis. And so having that interface with the community is different and exciting and sometimes annoying, but mostly just like an educational tool, people are asking gardening advice or what is that, what are you growing there? Or, how you doing this morning? And can you turn your music down all day long? And it's, I think, something that we are lacking because farms are sort of isolated in rural areas normally, and people are in urban areas, and we don't think about that, what it takes to grow food. So urban farms, I think, are really important. And so my dad, farming, as I said before, skipped a generation. My dad designed this neighborhood that the farm is actually in to have a farm embedded in it, because he builds houses, and so he's trying to change the status quo of the golf course, being in the middle of a neighborhood, and he says the farm should too. So that idea of having a space of growing and of feeding and of education within a neighborhood, I think makes Lucky Crow really special.
I would like to hear about what kind of education you're doing and why it's important around organic food and vegetables and farming in general.
Yeah, I think the educational component is, there are many facets on the farm. The first and foremost, which I think is really important, is I feel like I have a duty to educate and train up and coming farmers and create new food growers and do it all in a safe space where anyone can be a farmer. And so that's sort of an important part that I think we expanded upon this season with having internships. So we partnered with Western and had 2 paid interns who ended up getting credit for working this summer on the urban farm, actually all the farm. And, it was kind of a way to teach 2 women who had never had any sort of experience with food production or gardening, what it takes to be a farmer, the work involved, starting with seeds and ending with going to the farmer's market and providing food for people. So that was a really exciting step that I'm really dedicated to expanding, because I think, training people up, it's hard to find a safe space to learn how to be a farmer. And I know from experience. Another aspect of education is outreach to the community, I think. So recently we had a outdoor camp with kids aged 5 to 12 come out and learn all about what it means to grow. They pick their own cucumbers and pickle them. So that's a really exciting kind of thing that we welcome. And farm tours for people of all ages. And then there's the other side of it, the coin, which is the eaters that we're feeding. And we have this kind of, I think, responsibility to teach them, how to use this weird vegetable that we've, put in their CSA box, or like, how to store it even, how to keep food for as long as possible. So that, I think, is important and happens a lot at the farmers markets. That's where we really have a lot of face-to-face interactions with our customers and can help them navigate eating more sustainably and more locally. So
totally. I feel like when I learned how to like properly store some things that would constantly go bad on me, it was a real game changer. Like, I don't know if I want to buy this because it might not like save until I'm ready to eat it. But yeah, I think that's great. It's like kind of a good for you and good for the customer to know those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
All right, so question of the hour. What's your favorite vegetable?
I get this question all the time, and honestly, my favorite vegetable is always the one that's like almost there. Like, we're almost going to harvest it. Like, I've waited a whole year to eat it, And so my favorite vegetable up until this week was Romano beans, because we had just like started harvesting them and there was a bounty and they're so delicious. And now I'm like, they're so good. I've eaten so many of them. So now I'm like, okay, delicata squash. Like, I see you, let's go. So it really varies, because I do honestly just eat whatever is the bounty is at that point. And so, I'll always love a good tomato. There's nothing like a brandy wine,
On that note, what is the reason why someone should buy local organic produce over supermarket produce?
There are so many reasons. I mean, first and foremost, I think, we go back to these ideas of the environmental and social and economic sustainability. Like, it's most likely that the produce that you're buying locally is going to have a lower carbon footprint, utilize less, potentially, if you're looking at my farm, synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, just having, you're able to have a connection with the farmer and ask questions that are important to you, versus going to the grocery store and you don't know who grew what. I think in the same vein, the contributing to your local economy is just altogether a positive for everybody. If you're supporting your people down the road, they're going to support you. And I honestly think that's the answer to a sustainable future, is just localizing and getting what you can from the people who, all around us. We have such skill and knowledge to share. And so not only economically, but also, socially, we can support each other. We can support projects. We can support, the community members that we see on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's better for you to eat the local food, but it's better for you. It's better for your heart. It's better for your body. It's better for your pocketbook, I think, in the long term, to just support the people. And I don't think it's just food. I think, I try really hard to source my amendments and my employees from a place that's like, what's the best thing for the farm, and for my community in general, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. I think also a good reason too is you just grow a taste of your product, it seems. You can go buy it at the farmer's market,
Oh, totally.
What has been some of your biggest challenges as a small business owner and a farmer in this area where there's tons of other farms?
Yeah, my biggest challenge, one is financial. Farming has just been a puzzle for me, financially. it's not something that brings in the big bucks. And so I, in the last couple of years, really had to decide, okay, I'm going to like buy some big equipment. I'm going to take out a loan to really make this, my wash and pack and my storage and my shop, something that can last for a long time. And I had to decide basically to put down roots and invest. And that is a scary thing, and it's a long-term thinking. And it's something where I now am a farmer for a while. You know, I've made those kinds of choices, and it has been a lot to be able to fund this project. But I'm getting to the point now where it's like, okay, I'm gonna take some risks. So far, so good. I think that I had to fully believe that I was going to be here for a long time in order to do that. And so that has been scary and challenging. Another challenge for me is the physical part. But on the scale that we are working, it's so much, it's just using your body all the time. And again, it took me years to realize that I need to be healing my body while I'm using it, and, you know, strengthening in other ways and taking care of myself, or else, once again, the farm can't keep going on, and that's not sustainable. So it's something I'm learning to do. It's something I'm trying to push my employees to consider that our bodies, you know, this job is just challenging and our bodies aren't going to last forever.
I think you just made like a really good point about self-care in general, like within farming and in kind of any other field you could possibly go into, like taking care of yourself is like the most important thing you could probably do to be successful, it seems like.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to kind of take a step back and recognize when you're knee deep in tomatoes, like, okay, maybe I could just like stretch for 10 seconds and my back might feel a little bit better, you know, but we have to do it. We have to take the time, because that's important for the longevity of the operation. So
For sure. So as a small business owner, what do you generally look for when you're hiring new employees? Like, maybe you could talk about it in the way of like, you know, someone's looking to get one of their first jobs. What are some kinds of skills and traits that they could bring to you that would be desirable for you as a small business owner?
Yeah. So as an employer, I mean, it's obviously a bonus if someone's like, I've worked on many a farm, but I don't see that a lot. And so the things that I'm looking for really are work ethic, and not only just being able to work hard, but working hard with like physical stamina for a long time. And there are certain types of people where that is enjoyable and that makes the job more fun. And I think I am the kind of person where it's like, the harder I work, the more rewarding it is, the more delicious dinner tastes that night, you know? So that having that like drive and enjoying it, because at the end of the day, we're like, you can work really hard, but if you're not having a good time and busting up in the field and like, you know, singing songs and whatever it is like that, you know, we have to play off of each other. And so you have to really love working hard and be able to laugh about it. I also think that a big thing in agriculture or in farming is problem solving. So can you know, be confronted with an issue where it's like, okay, this is broken. These are the things that we have to fix it. And they're certainly not the right things that should be used to fix this. What can we do? And, you know, what skills do I have? What skills do you have? What do we know about this? How long can this fix? I mean, it's always just constantly problem solving. Oh, I forgot this at the market. How can I like, you know, figure out another, you know, table to set up, whatever. It's always just, there's always something going wrong. There's always something amiss. There's always a leaking irrigation, you know, and you're constantly fixing it and figuring it out. And so that is also something where someone should thrive on that and enjoy it. And because that is basically a constant. And I just look for people who are not just that are passionate about the work that we do. And it doesn't have to be like, I love vegetables, but definitely like, I'm trying to make this world a better place. I want to create a safe place for my fellow employees to work and for my customers to eat and buy produce. And I'm open to learning what you have to teach me, and I'm open to teaching you what I have to teach.
So I'm sure probably someone out there is really interested in following a similar path to you. Do you have any advice for young people that want to be farmers and start their own farm someday?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, work on a farm or 2 or 3 or 5. That's the way that you kind of can, with a little bit less risk, figure out if this is what you want to do and learn how to do it from people who are very skilled and knowledgeable in their career. Secondly, I think finding your community of farmers in the space that you decide to farm, and mentors and people who are there to not only support you and teach you and help you, but also are just like, know what you're going through. As like a solo owner of a farming operation, I have found it to be, I have found it to be so wonderful and not lonely, because I have had such a strong group of farmers in the area. And when I need a beer or even just, a phone call, they're there. And my mentors, mostly women with small vegetable farms in the area, have just been incredibly generous with their time and their energy and their knowledge with me. So you're not alone. You never see farmers really, because we're all hermits, but like, we're out there. And so if you're going to start a farm, find some fellow farmers to be your friend, because it's a long road to hoe, if you will.
So I love hearing about just having mentors and women lifting each other up to be successful. That always warms my heart.
Yes.
I just be like patronizing or anything, but I love that stuff.
I love it too. And you would think like there, with so many vegetable farms in the area, like maybe there would be some kind of competition, but it truly is just, the more that we all succeed, the better everything will be. And we're all working towards a common goal. And it's a beautiful, it like brings tears to my eyes, but it's like the way that, at least in this area, the farmers connect is a wonderful thing. I think it's really important to recognize that agriculture is such a broad sphere. And so being a farmer is a very important job, and is obviously a huge aspect of what agriculture is. But if you're not the kind of person who wants to be a farmer, there are so many spaces for you in our food producing network. We have eaters who need access to food. We have land that needs conservation. We have policy that needs to be made. We have, farmers that need resources and education and research. The list goes on. And so I think when you're preparing for, if agriculture is for you, that find what you're good at or what you're passionate about, and then utilize those skills to push the food system in the right direction. Because I've known many people, friends and acquaintances, that have tried farming and it wasn't for them. And I don't blame them, because it's crazy. So, but that doesn't mean you have to become a car salesman, because that's just you didn't make it in the agricultural sphere. There are spots for you if you're passionate about food, and how to produce it in our society. So start with what you love and start with what you're good at and go from there, I would say.
So why should young women and gender minorities consider pursuing a career in agriculture? What are some of the benefits?
I mean, you just think about food and you think about how it's just like a basic thing that all of us need for survival. And the fact that a certain type of person is like controlling all of that, it's ridiculous. Like, I personally believe the more diverse, the more sustainable, the more ideas and beliefs and ideas that are thrown out into the agricultural sphere, the better. And it just doesn't make any sense that many people are not recognized and or represented. And so I think it's just like an obvious next step is the more the merrier, and the better it will be, and the more problems will be solved. And I know it's so hard, and I, as a queer woman, I'm still surprised every time I walk out of a Tractor Supply store and I'm not like feeling patronized, and but that's a win because I wasn't, so it's a hard road ahead of us. But I think the more of us that come together and support each other, I think it would just make agriculture such a better place.
I completely agree. So what is next for Lucky Crow Farms?
Oh, we're going to just keep on harvesting tomatoes through the month. And I think as the business grows, I'm trying to be more of an asset to my community. And so, like I said, internships, that kind of thing is going to grow as a program on the farm. I've been joining more boards, trying to get more involved with what's going on in economic development and food access in my community, running for a county seat, which, I think as a small farmer, this position is not generally being represented by people like me. And so I think it's now time for Lucky Crow Farm to kind of contribute to the community that has supported us so much through these last few years. We'll see. You never know what the next season will bring, honestly. You just never know.
So do you have anything to plug? Do you want to tell people where they can find you or any social media that they can follow you on?
Yeah, we're at the Corvallis and Independence Farmers Markets every Saturday. We have a newsletter with updates and musings and recipes and pictures. And you can sign up for that on our website at luckycrowfarm.com. We have Instagram, Facebook, which I'm dedicated to being better at, Lucky Crow Farm. And we have a CSA. So if you're looking for a weekly produce pickup in Monmouth or Salem or Corvallis, we can feed you all season long. So it's all on the website.
Excellent, Eden. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Casey. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Closing the Gap. If you like this show, subscribe on Spotify. You can also find us on Instagram at MV-STEM-CTE, on Twitter at Mid-Valley STEM, and online at midvalleystem.org. Until next time, keep progressing.